If for some reason you're thinking, hey, does that title have a double meaning? Yes, and the secondary meaning is that the man's name, who is the love interest in this book, is named Wicked. Moment of silence to let that sink in. Hi, my name's Rachel, and today we're talking about Wicked is the Reaper by Nisha J. Tooley. Booktok said, hey, do you want another romantasy that has spice in it? This one's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And I, never knowing when to quit, said, all right, be our guest, they said. No, it's too early for Beauty and the Beast jokes. This book is written by the same author who wrote Trial of the Sun Queen, which I do have a copy of that I found in a little free library, and I am planning to try that one, even after reading this, which was not so much what I was hoping it would be. In this book, a fae guy named Wicked decides he's going to steal our beauty, a princess named Rowan, away so he can use her as ogre bait. And instead they find themselves baited into romance. And by romance, I mean things I can't say out loud or YouTube will demonetize me.
At the risk of YouTube getting mad at me further, I do want to issue a content warning for this video. It is going to include talking about adult content, including adult scenes, and including talking about and showing adult toys. Thank you.
It is on Everin, so I slapped it in my ear holes, and quickly I found that I had a lot of questions. Also quickly was these two in this book getting steamy in the woods. It's like that old question about a tree falling in the woods, but if there's no one there, does it make any sound, right? Only it's, if a fae man moans in the woods and only a princess is around to hear it, does he make a noise? Guess we'll find out. Speaking of noises, did you guys know that the first ever silent vibrator is here? And lucky for you guys, I'm doing a giveaway with Bellessa today where everyone wins a free toy. And Bellessa now has the Whisper Bullet, which is the world's first ever silent vibrator. If you don't believe me, it's actually been running this entire time I've been talking and you had no idea. Bellessa's new Whisper Tech makes sure that you never need to choose between power and discretion. You can put your pleasure first without waking up your entire house or the entire forest like our main characters did today. All right, we're gonna test it out. You can't hear anything. The only way that you know it's on is because the red button is on, you can see it. It'll stay silent, but can you? We know Wicked can't. Whisper Bullet was made with aesthetics in mind. It looks like a tube of lipstick. It's very cute and very nondescript. So who's gonna know? I mean, they're not even gonna hear it.
For reference, this is another Bellessa toy I have and you can hear it, but this one you cannot hear at all. Silent but deadly.
If you don't know, Bellessa is a by women company for all things sexual wellness. Bellessa's mission is to empower everybody to celebrate and embrace their sexuality. Whisper Bullet is also great because it comes with a charging cable that just plugs like right into the bottom. There's no like little USB thing you can barely see, but that's the charging part. And you just, not gonna make a joke here about sticking this in. You just literally stick it in there and then it's charging. It does not do annoying patterns, but it does have several different settings. It has one button, you click it on. This is a super good toy for beginners, and then you just press the button again to amp up the speed, and you still can't hear it. This is the highest speed, and it's not making any noise. And the same button turns it off, and it's super small, so it's great for traveling, and also just general discretion. Everyone who signs up at my link down below wins a free Whisper Bullet or a free Air Vibe with their Whisper Bullet order, and that's a $99 free gift. So click the link down below and grab your new vibe. And thank you to Bellessa for sponsoring today's video. I'll tell you what wasn't silent was me reading this book, because the audible questions I proposed while listening to this out loud in my car were happening. What do you mean? I shouted to no one. How is the title Wicked is the Reaper if he's not the Reaper? We'll get there. Let's dig in. Unfortunately, I have to do this entirely from my phone because I tandem read this and Kindle refuses to let you export all of your highlights. They only let you export 10% of them because they don't want you copy pasting the whole book. I'm not copy pasting the whole book. I'm just trying to work. Before we start, I gotta say I really don't like the cover. I don't feel like it really tells you like what's on the inside, and this happens with books I even like. So for instance, I just recently read and super enjoyed The Gilded Crown, and that book has a cover that does not convey what's on the inside whatsoever. This one, first of all, I don't really like the kind of like neon colors going on, but more than that, I don't know what the skull is about other than like the guy Wicked, he wears a mask with a skull on it, but that's not a mask, that's just a straight up skull. I don't really understand what the flowers are about. I guess I kind of get the chains thing. I don't know. This just sort of seems like, what super quick cover can I get on this book? And this is like a trend in fantasy books where it's like flowers and skulls, and I just, if that's not like really really important to your story, let's pick something else. So all these books are starting to look the same. So this is book 1 in the Cursed Captors series. It is dedicated to the girls who think the villain is kind of hot, which that does describe me, actually, for all the things that I make fun of on this channel. I often do think I just almost said women are hot. I do think women are hot. I am very bisexual. Well, I'm pansexual. Immediately my mouth just went, I think women are hot. It's fine. I think villains are hot, especially when they're women. Did you guys watch Agatha All Along? Aubrey Plaza. Let's just move on. Let's move on. Chapter 1. 23 potential suitors stalked the forest, each with the promise of a crown and a bride in their sights. They were an adequate, if uninspired, lot. We don't really see them. We just see one guy. So our main character is Rowan, and she is a princess. And everybody, I guess, in this little town, it's a quiet village, that she is the princess of. Her and her mom and dad are the king and queen, and she has a younger sister. All the men have to bring the biggest deer, and whoever brings the biggest deer gets to marry the princess. And this is happening because the Fae overlords deem it so. And she's not allowed to go into the forest. She's forbidden because of the tales of the Reaper who haunted the trees, pierced our dreams. Pierced our dreams? Pierced? Leaving us lying awake and blinking in the dark. As we grew older, we still kept our distance, fearing the evil that rooted in its soil. The writing leaves a little something to be desired. Now, her younger sister, Margaret, will never share this fate, or will she? Because it's only the oldest daughter, I guess. What happens if they only have sons? I don't know. For 25 years, I'd awaited this day. From the moment I'd been old enough, I understood the hunt, capital H, would be the arbiter of my future, bound by fate, by circumstance, by the order of my birth, to the man I would marry, and the man who would rule as king of Aetheris. When the Fae had colonized our kingdom centuries ago, they'd left behind not only the blemish of their rule, but a decree. The hunt would decide the betrothal of any firstborn royal daughter. It was the way they had always done it in their own world, and we were to follow the same archaic rules that would see me handed over to a man without say. Now, okay, but the Fae are not around. Like, they don't hang out in Aetheris. I don't even really understand if they are on the planet or if they are elsewhere. I don't really understand. It had never been clear to me why the Fae cared at all, but I suspected it was to remind everyone who held the balance of our lives in their hands. Well, you just said that it's because that's how it's done in their world. So wouldn't it be that, and again, they're not there experiencing it. So sure, what do they care? But wouldn't it be about, like, you know, this supposed Fae morality that the Fae think are better, these ideas and rules that they have that are better than human rules, so they're imposing that upon, I mean, you called it colonization. That is typically what, like, certainly what colonizers have done historically, is impose their, you know, their idea of morality upon the population. I don't know, this just seems a little wishy-washy. We're not sure why we're doing things. We're just throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what sticks. Everyone knew Ellis was the best hunter in Aetheris, and even though it wasn't a guarantee, today's odds swayed mostly in his favor. We'd been friends since we were children and had both understood this wasn't just my fate, but his as well. Ellis is a nice guy. She couldn't have asked for a better match. They have, like, basically no attraction to each other, but they're like, sort of resigned to their fate. And he's like, all right, I'm getting this biggest deer. I'm bringing it back. We get married. This is our future. So he's the anti-Gaston, I guess. A group of Fae-appointed overseers approached and began measuring, weighing, and cataloging his kill for posterity. So I'm like, okay, Fae-appointed overseers. So are these people Fae or are these people humans? I don't really know. I don't really know how the Fae are in contact with the overseers and how they, like, make sure that their will be done and all that stuff. Ellis was the right choice for me. His family was influential and he would be a good king. I didn't need that furious longing I'd read about in my favorite romance novels. Those were just stories. That wasn't real. Oh, but I bet you a man will come along and show you how real it is. Our relationship wasn't about lust or passion, but he was stable and loyal and would make a fine husband. That was better. That was what a queen needed. We're really just beating it over the head. We got it. He's nice. The overseers tabulated the numbers, assessing Ellis's stag. When they were done, they scurried to my father, all of them moving to the side to speak in soft whispers. And her dad's like, all right, we've tabulated and Ellis is the winner. Not so fast, came a low rumbling voice through the trees. A figure heaved the biggest stag I'd ever seen off its shoulders and dropped the carcass at my feet with a resounding thud. The Reaper, my mother whispered. The figure looked up. It wore a matte black mask in the shape of a leering skull, its row of menacing teeth flashing gold. It was the specter of death. If I had a nickel for every book I've read where the man wears a skull mask, in the last couple of months. It's only 2, but it's funny that it happened twice. A vision to make you believe in the possibility of all your worst fears. We all knew the stories, nightmares charged with tales of the Reaper and what he did to those he dragged into the forest, the girls we'd found dead over the years, their heart ripped from their chest, their vacant eyes staring at the sky, their mouths open with the last screams they'd ever utter. I'm competing for the hand of the princess, the Reaper said, his voice like rusty chains dragged over stone. He spat the word princess like it was an embittered curse he'd found amongst a heap of garbage. Ah yes, we know where normally we find curses, in heaps of garbage. This monster wanted to marry me? You can't, my father said. I had to go downstairs and get coffee to finish this. So he comes to compete for the hand of the princess, and her dad's like, no, you didn't enter this morning, so you can't be a part of it. And the overseers that I guess are humans appointed by Fae, we're just gonna go with that option, I'm not really sure, are like, well, that's actually just a courtesy. He doesn't actually have to enter. In which case, like, I really want to see the rules because, like, what's the time limit on this? What if somebody else shows up tomorrow and is like, I brought the bigger stag? Can I see the rule book? So the Reaper's like, record my stag, bitch. He doesn't say bitch. I made that up. My father had no choice. I realized these were the rules of the hunt. What are the rules? Again, I would like to see them. Failure to comply would bring down the wrath of the Fae and their wanton brutality. What is stopping them from bringing down their wrath right now? That you're following the rules? I don't understand. What's it to them? Where do they live again? Unfortunately for her and her family and Ellis, the not Gaston guy, the Reaper stag is the biggest of the big. The contestant stag is larger by several orders, your majesty. Unless there are any other claimants, the Reaper is the winner of the princess's hand. No, Ellis said, I will not allow this. This monster cannot be the king. You cannot mean to go through with this. Reaper's like, I have no desire to be king. I'm taking her with me. And I'm like, wait, hold on, wait. Isn't that against the rules? Again, can we see the rule book? Did the Fae create a contingency plan for what happens if the man shows up and says, actually, I don't want to be king? And that feels like a loophole in the rules, right? Because this is supposed to decide who's the next king. Her dad is asking the overseers, find a loophole in the rules, something, Rowan can't go. He has won as per the rules of the hunt. So the rules allow for the man to just take him? Then what happens? I'm confused. By decree, the princess now belongs to the Reaper. She's like, oh God, what does he plan to do with me? He. Her dad's like, I never wanted this for you. I should have taken precautions. I'm like, what precautions would have prevented this? I'm so confused. Ellis, the not Gaston, is like, you can't mean to go through with this. And she's like, if I don't, the Fae will come. But they're not going to come over this guy doing this? I don't understand. But then by the end, she's not worried about the Fae coming, even though they like entirely shirk this. I don't get it. So Ellis says to her, I'll find you, Rowan. I'll find some way to get you out of this bargain, I swear it. I nodded, sure that was a promise he couldn't keep. You're correct. In fact, I don't think he even tried the whole time. I was surprised because I thought this was going to go the way of A Fire in the Sky, where the Gaston type character is like, I'm coming for you. And the beast is like, try me, bitch. But instead, Ellis is just like, guess you're with him. The Reaper says, well, this is all very touching. We should get going before the sun sets any further. So then he ties her wrists up with a rope. Now, looking back, I'm like, I don't really know why he was so rude to her. But I guess it's just drama for drama's sake. I don't fucking know. I'm not an animal to be trussed up and dragged into the forest. That's where you're wrong, princess. Ellis once again says, I'll come for you. Be strong. He doesn't come for her. He literally just leaves her. Like, he just like falls off the map. I mean, like he shows up, but he never tried to do anything. He was like, I'll come for you. It's like when my kid sees like a petting zoo on the side of the road and he's like, Mom, we should totally go to that. But I don't know what it is. And I don't know if it's like weird. I don't know who's running it. It looks kind of fishy. And I'm like, yeah, we should totally check that out next time. That's Ellis right now. I'll totally come for you. I will do that. So of course, you know, the Reaper's like, I'd like to see you try, bitch. He doesn't say bitch. So they're walking. They're going on a whole ass hike to, you know, she doesn't know where the Reaper lives. She assumes that he's some murderer. I thought that what we were doing was sort of like a literal Reaper type thing where he was like death and he was preying upon girls for some reason. But then it would come out like, oh, I prey upon everybody because I'm death incarnate. And I was confused because she said he was walking, his long cloak fluttering in the air like the angel of death. And I was like, isn't he the angel of death? I was very confused at this point. And she's like, I wonder what's going on at home. Was Ellis pouring through texts, searching for a way to get me out of this? My father was likely ordering every one of his advisors to get me back, but the decree was binding. The Fae had seen to that a long time ago. I still don't really understand why, and I don't know why her father would be ordering them to do something that they literally can't do. If it's going to bring the wrath of the Fae upon them, then they cannot do it. But I just, like, it's one girl. Like, why can't they just let it go? I don't understand the stakes here. I want to. I'm trying. And if the decree is binding, then doesn't that include the decree like ending in a new king being chosen by way of marrying the princess? But they have shirked the decree, and that wasn't really up to her dad. So like, now what do they do? Is there a contingency plan? Again, I just need to know the rules. Can we lay them out? So they walk to his home, which is, of course, it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling, a castle, a battered stone castle looking like a single incisor left in a gaping, toothless smile. Where had it come from? Who had once ruled here? The battlements were cracked and worn, the shattered windows like vacant eye sockets watching our approach. Now, that's all fine and good. I just don't really understand how a princess wouldn't know about the surrounding lands of her own kingdom and like who would have possibly ruled here. And she's like, I knew that this was to be my new home. So they go in and she realizes that he has a cage and she's like, oh fuck, what am I getting into right now? No, there's no freaky cage shit in this book. Well, no, I'm not going in there. With his enormous hand, of course, still wrapped around my arm, he shoved me through the door of the cage. My skirts tangled, I crashed into the far wall, my bound hand scraping the stone and my cheek grazing the surface. I winced at the sting when it broke my skin. I don't really understand why he's so mean to her. I really don't. Like, he had other visitors previous to this and he wasn't mean to them, so I don't really know why he's being such a dick about this. And to be honest, like, the reasons that he did this, like, we find out later, and he could have just explained it to them and they could have figured something out. There were 2 princesses. He could have taken the other one. He didn't actually need her. This is so stupid. I need to switch to water because that coffee's not very good. Do you like my pumpkin cup? So he takes off his mask. She's like, what horrors lurk beneath? It's a hot guy. Of course it is. And of course he has wavy black hair and he looks normal, almost normal anyway, but for the line of dark markings that ran down the side of his face and throat and disappeared into his collar. He appeared normal, yes, but also not quite of this world. His skin bore a sheen, a near iridescence, his ears sweeping into delicate points. The way he moved like water flowing over river-worn stones marked him as anything but human. You're Fae. You're one of them. I don't understand. Why do you live out here? He just ignores her while she's talking. I really don't understand why he's such a dick in the beginning of this. You're gonna keep me here like an animal? Why do you have a cage in your home? The Reaper is a filthy Fae? She's like just rapid firing these questions at him. Watch your mouth, princess. I will not. Why do you have a cage here? Who else have you locked up? Where are they? You sure you want an answer to that, princess? Don't worry, they weren't all human. I don't know who he's talking about. He doesn't seem to have locked anybody up. You won't be in there long. Who are you? Why do they call you the Reaper? Wait, aren't you guys the one who named him the Reaper? What do you mean? What? What do you mean? The answer to that question wasn't one I was sure I wanted to either, but I was here now and information might be the only weapon I had. But isn't it you guys who call him the Reaper because you found a bunch of dead bodies and then you assumed that it was this dude? And then he says, I'm not the Reaper, but the title is, this man's name is the Reaper. So wouldn't the title need to be Wicked is not the Reaper? The thing you humans call the Reaper is actually an ogre and lives somewhere deep in the woods. There were 2 monsters haunting the forest. Why does everyone call it the Reaper then? Obviously because it kills everything it sees. Not very clever, are you, princess? No, she's not. I am very confused though, because isn't it that is she asking what the word Reaper means? Was this written in a hurry? If you're not the Reaper, what do you want with me? You're gonna help me catch it. You're the bait, princess. What do you mean I'm the bait? So he goes to cut her restraints, and of course it says he seized my wrist in one of his large palms. Then it says, the only Fae I'd ever seen were those who came to visit once a year to ensure we were conforming to their unjust and numerous laws, but those Fae were very different. Oh my god, I have so many questions. I have so many questions. Come visit from where? Is it a different planet? Is it a different country? Why don't they have an emissary? Wouldn't an emissary be important to them? Their hair was light, usually so blonde it was white or silver. They had pale blue eyes and their skin shimmered like starlight. They spoke in dulcet tones like they were trying to hypnotize us and moved through the castle as if they floated on gossamer clouds. Clowns? Rachel. This fae was entirely different, with his dark olive skin and his black eyes. He didn't shimmer so much as he hummed with a sort of leashed energy. Oh, like a vibrator on speed 1. So he doesn't shimmer, but the other fae do. Have you put him in sunlight? Because maybe he just needs to go in the sunlight.
This is what I am.
That is only the first Edward Cullen joke I'm going to make. There's going to be several. I wrote them down for you. His face was pleasing if you look past the fact that he just stolen me from my home and was planning to feed me to an ogre. He actually hasn't said that yet. He hasn't said he's going to feed you to it. Those strange markings tattooed on his skin ran over high cheekbones and his sharp jaw covered in a thin layer of stubble. He had full lips and dark angled eyebrows and the honed form of a man used to fighting. These books are all starting to sound the same to me because I just started this one and that also describes the love interest almost exactly like this. These books, they all have a sharp jaw with a thin layer of stubble and a muscle ticks in his jaw when he's upset because she said something snarky, and he has eyes that glower at her and dark wavy hair that falls to his shoulders that he sometimes does this too. And his eyes are insert a color here that she's never seen before. They're all starting to sound the same, and like it was probably fine the first time I read it. I probably didn't even notice it the first 3 times, but now that I picked up on it, now it's not fun anymore because now it's like, oh, here it comes. I need something new. I need something fresh. Actually, I did get something fresh. It wasn't really a romance though. Can I interest you in the Gilded Crown? Death as a person is in it. It's a dude, but he's not the love interest. Or at least he's not in this book. Maybe later, I doubt it, but maybe. He says, I'll let you out to eat something, but don't do anything stupid. You can't outrun me. He asks, your name was Rowan, right? And she's like, why? Like you said, I won't be here long. But then she asks, what's your name? I'd like to know who I'll be cursing when the ogre is devouring me. Now, it's at this point that he could have said, oh, I'm not actually going to let it kill you. I just need you as bait. He literally just said, you're bait. I mean, you could let her go. Like, I don't know why he doesn't just tell her, but okay. So the question is, what is his name? The answer is Wicked. I burst into laughter and slapped my hand over my mouth. Girl sane. His eyebrows drew together, his intense gaze sparking. What? Sparking? His intense gaze sparking. Is that correct? I don't know, that just doesn't sound... Sparking what? Is something funny, princess? That's not your real name, that's ridiculous. Well, it's the only one you're getting. It is his real name. His name is Wicked. Watch it, princess, you're alive at my mercy. Why are you threatening her? You stole her from her home. You've already told me that I'm ogre food. What incentive is there for me to behave wicked? If I'm perfectly sweet and docile, will you change your mind and let me go home? I didn't think so. Why do you want to catch the ogre? None of your business, he said. I do think it's my business if you're planning to feed me to it. The least you can do is tell me why. And he says, get used to disappointment.
Get used to disappointment.
Are we doing some inserts here? Because, like, I'm picking up what you're putting down. He says, keep this up and I will make you sleep outside. All I need is your blood. The rest of you is expendable. And it's at this point I'm like, if all you need is her blood, then why don't you just drain some of it and use it as ogre bait? She's like, I should be at home. I'm so disappointed. Instead, I'm here in this drafty, awful tomb with this cruel wild fae about to become a snack for some monster I couldn't even imagine. And I'm like, wait, you can't imagine an ogre? Do you not know what an ogre is? Is there a reason for that? Are ogres made up? What do you mean? You can't imagine an ogre? Why? So the next day he feeds her food. He loves to cook. He's a wicked good cook. Ha! It's a mom joke. You're welcome. And while they're eating this delicious breakfast he cooked that she refuses to say is delicious, which honestly is some petty shit I would pull too. I'm not gonna say your food's good, not even if there's a fire. I've been tracking the ogre through the foothills of the Wassanan Mountains for the past 3 weeks. That will be a good place to set up tonight. And she's thinking, I need to find a way to escape. So she tries several different escape plans and none of them work out, obviously, because he's fae. And she even points this out to herself. It is pointless for her to try to escape because even if I did, by the laws of Aetherus and the fae, I belong to him and it would only be a matter of time before he found me and dragged me back here. And I'm like, what? I mean, okay, so like the humans who work for the fae, assuming that's what that is, at her village, wouldn't they report it? Are they not loyal to the other humans? Like, why couldn't they just report her as dead and then set up the next princess to be the queen and have a king? I'm so confused. And like, I'm just asking basic questions. So they wait for the sun to set. He cooks another meal and he serves it with a whole bunch of wine. And she's like, well, fuck it. I'm just gonna get drunk. She gets a little drunk and then he's like, all right, it's time to go. How can you do this to me? I've never hurt anyone. My venomous words landed where he was putting on his clothes. My venomous words landed where he was putting on his clothes. No, that's, no, that doesn't make, so what you're trying to say is my venomous, it was clear that my venomous words had landed when I noticed that he stopped pulling on his jacket. It is what you're trying to say. Like, he stops moving. He's pulling on his clothes and he stops because it's clear that the words had an effect on him. But when you say it, my venomous words landed where he was putting on his clothes, it sounds like the words spat out and like landed next to him as he's pulling on clothes. So she's walking around in slippers in the snow in the forest, and I don't know why he's being such a dick about this, but anyway, she like loses her footing, she falls, he has to carry her. He sets her up on a rock and chains her to this rock, so again, the chains on the cover make some sort of sense. Are you really going to leave me out here? I knew the Fae were terrible, but I didn't know you had absolutely no conscience. And he's like, don't let me in with the Fae. And I'm like, but you're literally being such a dick, so why not? Are you kidding me? You're the worst of the lot. You stole me from my family, from the man I was supposed to marry. You ruined my entire life to use me as bait for a monster, and you won't even tell me why. And his answer is, I'll be hiding in the trees. She's like, fuck you. I'm serious. That's what she actually says. It's not like all those other times I lied to you and he said bitch though. Please don't do this. I'll help you find another way. Anything you want, it's yours. So he leaves her out there a while. The ogre doesn't come. She's starting to like fall extremely cold and get like ill. And she thinks that the ogre is coming and getting her, but really it's him picking her up. And so the next day he's like, you passed out from the cold, near onset of hypothermia, I think. Oh, it's been 2 days. She fell asleep for 2 days. And when she wakes up, she realizes that her stuff is at his house. Her boots, her wool dresses, her flannel nightgowns. And he's like, yeah, I went back to the castle and I got them for you. Your mother packed them. How's my mother? Did you see my father, my sister? Your mother and sister were well enough. Your father wasn't happy to see me. Yes, well, you did steal his eldest daughter, and he doesn't know the half of what you plan to do with me. He probably figured you just wanted to have your way with me. Wicked's eyes flashed. I stopped a servant outside and told them to send your mother out. She asked about you, and I told her you were fine. Yes, I'm great. Just a little monster bait. That's all. It's the idyllic marriage I always hoped for. So she's like, so why am I not dead? Why am I not being digested by the Reaper right now? And he says, well, it didn't show up. I guess it's not interested in me then. You should probably take me home. No hard feelings, okay? And he's like, no, we'll try again. Maybe you do still want to use me for other lurid reasons. And he's like, I would never do that. No, you would just chain her to a rock without giving her any explanation. You would put her in a cell in your home, make her walk through the snow with slippers on until the point where she has fucking hypothermia. You're not a good dude. Like, just because you're not a rapist, you're not a good dude either. But it's okay, because literally in the next paragraph, she does tell him that. Do you want a knighthood for that? This dude is really cooking. And you know what? Actually cooking food, not making any good points. He set down the fresh food, a fresh salad of greens and tomatoes, a platter with poached fish, and a bowl of roasted potatoes swimming in gravy. And you know what? Bitch, I'm hungry. She's like, wait, where do you get all this food from? And he says, from the village, which means that he interacts with people. So like, I don't know how this hasn't gotten back to them, but okay. So what's the plan? Am I going into the woods again tonight? Surely you want to get my murder over with. And instead of answering, he just looks at her with darkened eyes. And she says, it was frustrating to notice how beautiful he was. Objectively speaking, of course, he was nothing like Ellis or the other men who tried to vie for my hand the day of the hunt. So of course we have to like separate him from other men. That's, you know, the typical shit that we do. It's the same thing we did in A Fire in the Sky and all kinds of other books. It's just like part of the course. It's another thing that I'm kind of tired of. He says, not tonight. Tonight you rest. I'll have to scout for another location. Might take a few days. And she's like, you know what? I'm gonna plot his murder. I'm gonna kill him and then I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. He's like, you can stop sleeping in the cell and you can start sleeping on the sofa, on the bed, and I'll sleep on the sofa. He says, I'm trusting you not to do anything stupid. I mean it. You'll get lost out there and it's dangerous. You can't run from me. I'm stronger and faster, and I can scent your trail for miles. There's nowhere you can go.
As if you could outrun me!
So they're just like staring at each other, and it says, for a moment we hung suspended in a trance, our gazes warring with a churning sea of unspoken thoughts. Our gazes warring with a churning sea of unspoken thoughts sounds like the gazes are warring with the churning sea rather than like our gazes are warring. It sounds like their gazes are at war with the Trixie. The descriptions are not doing so well here. She sees him asleep and says, my eyes trained on the dark line of hair that ran under his navel and disappeared into his waistband before my cheeks flushed with heat. He was a monster, but wow. Why had the gods seen fit to turn this beast into the perfect specimen of male beauty? So she's like, I need to get into his weapons trunk, but he only has the key in his pocket, and I can't dig into his pants because it makes my cheeks flush again. Fuck it, I'd just run. My father couldn't go against the decree, but maybe we could stall for time. So she just goes out the door and books it. She just starts running. My stomach sank when I realized a dark blur was racing through the trees and it was gaining on me quickly. So this is the part in like Beauty and the Beast where she runs away and then she gets hurt, or she gets in danger and he has to come after her. Now in Beauty and the Beast gets hurt and she has to take care of him, but it's the other way around in this book. So she like falls, a sharp pain dragged along my shoulder. I screamed, I spun in a blur. Wicked was still only half dressed as he bounded down the hillside. Oh no, not a shirtless man. My body protesting and blood gushing where my shoulder ached. And so he picks her up and he runs with her, and it says, it was then I realized how much he'd held himself back earlier as he ran so fast. I felt the resistance of the wind on the backs of my legs.
You better hold on tight, spider monkey.
I told you that you wouldn't get away. Fuck you. So he tends to her injury, and I tried not to think about how close his fingers were to my naked breasts and how nice they felt on my skin. He's like, all right, well, I'll have to get some ointment in the village tomorrow. And she says a part of her feels guilty for running. It feels like a red flag, but all right. And before, you want to talk about red flags, before he falls asleep, he says, what are you doing to me, Rowan? No. So she wakes up before him. She doesn't run this time, but she's like studying him, of course. I didn't move a muscle, only scanning him while I studied the strange tattoos that ran down the side of his torso, wondering what they meant. And he's like in the bed with her because he wanted to keep an eye on her. So there was only one bed and they're both in it. That's something that I don't get sick of. I think it's cute. So he comes back with healing ointment after going to pick it up. Why was he bothering? Did he need a sacrificial lamb in tip-top shape the next time he abandoned me in the forest? And I'm like, that is a good question. You should ask him. And also, the text should just answer it. There's really no reason to keep that from the reader. And he's like, well, we can keep sharing the bed if you want. I'll have to chain you to it though. Ooh, freaky. I can't have you running off again. Absolutely not. Then you can sleep in your cell. And she's holding a butter knife because they're eating breakfast. He notices, he says, don't bother. I'm 100 times stronger than you could ever hope to be, princess.
As if you could fight me off.
Edward! Don't think I'd hesitate to reach into your pants for the key if the opportunity arose. And he blushes. I think it's cute when men blush and they're not always just like they're the hypersexual one and the woman's always blushing. Make men blush again. And we get a passage of time where it's like a week and she's still recovering from her injury. Wicked never lets her out of his sight, but also never lets his guard down. Every day he'd go out for hours and leave me locked up, returning as the sun was setting to make us dinner. Our conversation flowed surprisingly easily while he asked me questions about my family and my life. I wish we'd seen it. There was something calming about being away from the castle and all my former obligations. What were those? The role of heir was never one I particularly relished. Wicked seemed to love listening to the stories of me and Margaret getting into all sorts of trouble and appeared genuinely interested in everything I had to say. I would be interested in hearing it too, just for funsies. Also, I think that this story would have been cooler if she had set this up where she was like, I don't want to be the queen. I don't like my role as heir, and I'm going to manipulate it to get this dude to come pick me up. I will do him a favor. I don't mean sexually, although you can throw that in if you want to. And then I will get out of what I have to do and go live a life that I choose for myself, and everybody wins. I love scheming women. I love women. I tried to fish for information about him because I was genuinely curious, but also because I desperately wanted to know why he wanted to capture the ogre and why I was being made his unwilling sacrifice. It is weird and useless that he does not just tell her. And then she starts to have indecent thoughts about him because, lest you forget, he is super hot. My emotions were turning into a jumble of warring desires threatening to tow me under. Tow me under? I think that's right. I don't know. Something about that sentence was wonky. I can't really put my finger on it. So one morning they wake up and they are snuggled together. And she's like, oh, what did you do? This is my side of the bed, princess. You're the one who did something. And he has a boner, and he, justifying this, says, I mean, it makes, like, I understand. I'm not, the way I worded that was funny. So explaining this, he says, It's morning, he stammered, his face turning red. Your thigh was right where... Shut up. Men. She wants to do something nice for him. She's like, how about I cook you dinner? He's like, do you even know how to cook? She's like, of course I know how to cook. Idiot. She doesn't know how to cook. So he has set up another cage outside and he takes her out there and he's like fixing it up. And she's like, brilliant idea. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. Even though, again, the implications or like the consequences for if she does that, still unclear. Don't know like what's gonna happen if she goes home. It's not like she can just stay there, but all right, whatever. Crashing into Wicked, I knock him over, sending him toppling into the cage. I slammed the door shut and flipped the lock before he launched himself at me with a snarl. Rowan, open this right now. And she's holding up a dagger that she stole from him. And she's like, well, I can't get close enough to slit his throat. And even if I could, I don't know that I can actually kill somebody. That doesn't seem like me. I don't do that. And she looks at him, she says, I'm sorry, not knowing what she's apologizing for. And then she books it again. Suddenly I went flying, something wrapping around my legs. I crashed into the ground, a heavy weight landing on top of me. I kicked and screamed and thrashed, but he had me. A low growl came from his throat as he flipped me over and pressed me into the cold ground, seizing my wrist in his hands. Let me go, I screamed. Hold still, he snarled. I'm going to. He trailed off, apparently at a loss for words. What? You're going to what? Leave me in the cage as bait for the Reaper and leave me to die? I still don't know what he was going to end that sentence with, to be honest with you. And he's like, that's not what... And then suddenly she realizes that he is hard as a rock. Like, not his entire body, specifically his dick. I could feel his thick length where his hips pressed between my thighs, and heat rushed to my stomach. Our gazes met and his nose flared as I remembered what he'd said about his sense of smell. Ah, yes, the old Fae trick where they can smell arousal. Another thing I wish would die. There was no doubt he could scent how wet I'd just become. Why was this so hot? I wanted to die right there of mortification. Me too, I'm a little embarrassed for you, but I think it's cute that they have like a primal kink. I think that that's fine. Basically, he chased her and now they're both horny. So new kink unlocked. Good for them. Just the way that whole boner scene was worded was a little secondhand embarrassment. I'd never seen him this angry. I hate you. I want to go home. How can you do this to me? He takes her back to his castle. You can't be angry with me for trying to save myself, I hissed. I'm not angry with you, he snarled. And then he kissed me. And of course, you know, there's mouths are devouring each other. His tongue plunged into my mouth while his hands roamed around my ribs and skated up to the sides of my breasts. And of course we do the thing, I can't stand this, where we compare it to the last person she slept with, which was our auntie Gaston, Ellis. It was nothing like Ellis's kisses. It was like comparing a light breeze that tickled your skin to a hurricane that ripped through you and shattered your bones. You guys get hurricanes? What is this, fantasy Florida? I wasn't entirely inexperienced. Ellis and I had succumbed to curiosity, hormones, and the security of knowing we'd be sharing our bed for the rest of our days, but that had been quiet and sweet, and this was a cord wrenched from a taut string. This was raw animal energy. Okay. I want to touch you, he said. I haven't been able to stop thinking about making you on my fingers. He pulled up, searching my face, asking for permission. She's like, oh God, yes. And I'm like, oh no, because here comes the jargon that I don't like. Fuck, you're so wet, princess. No, stop. Okay, so they're doing handiwork. Sorry. They're doing handiwork for each other, okay? So it's not like immediately P and V, right? Which I think is good, but specifically I think that I don't like the using of the nickname princess I just don't like it. And I think it's even worse in the, steamy scenes. But I will say that what I don't see often in steamy scenes is men saying how they want handiwork done. And I think that, how do I even verbalize this? In the interest of equal opportunity, I think that men should be able to, on page, see themselves in fantasy romances asking for specific things to be done. It's a lot of like women saying faster, harder, but I don't see that from men. So this book did, and I was pleasantly surprised by that. So she's doing some handiwork, and he says, tighter, Rowan. And I'm like, nice, good for him. He's able to verbalize and say what he wants her to do. And I can appreciate when steamy scenes are not just like these two two people, specifically the man, know exactly what he's doing and he's the best of the best. And it's kind of like that, but I appreciate that like he's telling her what he wants from her with his own body and verbalizing that, and she's like learning what his likes are. I think that that's good. I don't think we see that enough. They both arrive, good for them. My mother would have a fit if she knew what I'd just done, and with a rogue fae, everyone called the Reaper no less. Who was he? Immediately after he thinks, or he verbalizes, I shouldn't have done that. In case you didn't notice, I was there too. Fine, we shouldn't have done that. Because you planned to kill me? I knew that when I decided I was okay with doing this, so you know. Girlfriend. Oh boy. Why are you so mad? I asked. I'm not. And he goes to cook. And then he says, tomorrow I'm taking you home. The handiwork was so good that he wants to return her from where he kidnapped her. Aww. You dragged me out here, stole me from my intended fiance and my crown, left me to nearly die in the forest, then built me a fucking cage to use me as bait. You don't get to just decide I'm going home without telling me why. I deserve answers and I'm not leaving until I get them. He doesn't say anything. She's like, so did you just like not enjoy it? Of course I enjoyed it. It was the most alive I've felt in centuries.
Last night was the best night of my existence.
That good, huh? See, this is what happens when men verbalize how they want their handiwork done. She's like, by the way, how'd you get out of that cage anyway? And he's like, oh, well, I wouldn't build a cage if I didn't have a way of getting out of it myself, just in case. I can't believe you didn't think about that. She's like, yeah, I didn't think that there was a way out of the cage. I wasn't gonna put you in that cage. I was building it for the Reaper. I thought I was the bait. You were, he said. And now I realize I can't do this. I've been trapped in this forest for almost 300 years. A witch cursed me to spend eternity within these trees. That's what these are. His tattoos down his face and neck. To break the curse, I need an ogre's heart. She chose this spot near the nest to taunt me. So you do know where the nest is? I thought you said earlier you didn't know where the nest is. If you know where the nest is, then why don't you just go to the nest? Why don't you just kill the ogres when they're asleep? I'm confused. They're notoriously hard to catch. I've tried and tried for centuries, and even though I've come close so many times, I've never managed it. But they aren't immortal, and they've been slowly dying out, and now there is only one left. If it dies, I'll be imprisoned here forever. So there's been multiple ogres, and the people thought that it was a Reaper. They never saw them. Nobody ever survived to tell the tale, oh, it's not some masked dude in the forest, it's an ogre. Okay. And he says that this witch cursed him. The witch is also a fae, I assume, because they were lovers, and then she left him for his younger brother who had his eye on the crown. So his brother is the Fae King, I guess? I don't know, he never comes on page. He was always more ruthless and they were a better match. They colluded to get rid of me, the witch cursing me and banishing me to this place. You aren't the first girl I brought here hoping to lure an ogre. It never worked though, and I let them all go. Eventually I stopped trying to catch them that way. Not many wandered to this place, but a few years ago, a wizard happened to pass by. We have witches and wizards. Huh. None of them come on page. He asked for shelter for the night. I shared my tale. He told me that only the blood of a princess would bait an ogre, that they wouldn't be able to resist its lure. But so the beginning of this book literally says that a bunch of girls died, and that's why they think that he's the Reaper, because they keep finding dead girls. So if those girls were good enough to lure out an ogre and for them to be killed, then why isn't any old girl good enough for bait? I don't understand. Apparently princess blood puts them in a trance. That's the only thing they can focus on, and then he'd be able to strike it dead. But it wasn't long after that that I heard about a princess who would soon be of age. So instead of chasing ogres, I spent the last 3 years learning to bring down the biggest and fiercest stags in the forest. See, if she had known about this and tried to get out of this position where she would end up the ruler and that she didn't want to be, she could have figured out that he was doing this and been like, all right, we're teaming up, and then we'll deal with your ogre thing afterwards. It was a selfish, terrible thing to do. After the last girl, I swore I'd never do that to anyone again, but then that wizard offered me what felt like a lifeline, and I was thinking only of myself. So I had no idea that you'd be so... Well, you aren't what I expected. I didn't expect to like you. You took me from my family. You took me from the man I was supposed to marry. You don't even want to marry him. Why do you keep bringing him up? Like, at least bring up your sister. My friends. What friends? My home and my life. Also, you could free yourself. I know. I promise I'll take you home tomorrow. I release you of any tie you have to me. You're free to go home and live the life you were supposed to. Can he do that? Can he just release her of the tie? Your brother, he's the one responsible for the decree. He's responsible for everything your kingdom has endured, princess. So she asks, why don't you look like the other fae? Because they're like blonde and pale and have blue eyes and they float around. And he says, they don't look like that either. Those are glamours they wear to interact with humans to convince them to kneel. They think it makes them look more godlike. Well, it works. So then she asks, okay, so who lived in this castle? And he says, oh, I built this shit myself. I built it over the years, hoping one day people will fill its halls. Why? Why didn't you just build yourself a cabin? Why do you care if people live in a fucking castle? What do you mean? But when it was done and I was still alone, I realized it was too depressing to live in it all by myself, so I closed it off and moved into this room where I've stayed ever since. You could have explained this to people and they probably would have sent people to live with you. Like, I'm sure that there are people who need housing. Like, what? You built the entire thing alone? I had nothing else to do, Rowan. You go to the village. You could... Okay. She decides that she never made him dinner that one time, so she wants to make him pancakes. And she's like, yeah, he has eggs, flour, and sugar, so I'll just make pancakes. How hard could it be? She says. Pause. I'm sorry. I have the best pancake recipe. If you've never heard of Post-Punk Kitchen with Issa Chandra Moskowitz, her puffy pillow pancake recipe is the best. I will leave it linked below. I'll probably forget. I hope it's down there because it's delicious. Highly recommend. Also, it's vegan. It's a recipe that I took on during my vegan days and never let go of because it's so good. And you can use gluten-free flour, by the way. Sorry, off topic. Her pancakes are terrible because there's no baking powder, which I don't know when baking powder was invented, but I guess they have it. I don't know. So unfortunately, he can't take her home because there's a pass they have to go through that is blocked up with snow and he can't get through it. So she's like, well, how will we survive? And he's like, well, there's a village that I trade with. And she says, well, then why have I never heard about you? And he's like, oh, well, you know, they believe I'm the Reaper. No one else knows there are actually two monsters living in this forest. And I'm like, so they believe that you're the Reaper. They believe that you are the thing in the woods killing the girls, and they're still willing to trade with you, and none of them have tried to kill you? None of them tried to poison you with that stuff that you're trading them with? Okay, that still doesn't make sense as to why she's never heard of him. I mean, it would make sense, like, she's the princess, her dad's the king. If the literal Reaper who is murdering the girls is trading with the village, it would make sense that would get back to the king. Okay, sure. So she asks basically if he's fucked anyone lately. You've got nothing to be jealous of, princess. She asks how long it's been, and he's like, I'm not really sure that's any of your business, but not so long that I've forgotten how to make a woman so hard she sees stars, Rowan. Wow! Calm down. So they are stuck because there's too much snow, and it says there was nothing else to do but cook and eat and stare at each other. I can think of one more thing that y'all haven't done yet. That I assume is coming. They lay down next to each other and she says, what are you thinking about? The same thing I've been thinking about for the past 3 days. How wet you were, how you tasted on my fingers, how you moaned when you came. Whoa! That is not the answer that I thought was coming. I thought he was gonna say what I'm gonna make for dinner. The stew recipe is really kicking my ass, but instead he's thinking about other things. Well, don't sugarcoat it, wicked, she says. What are you thinking about, princess? Clearly about now, thanks. I was already thinking about how good it felt when you touched me too, about how it would feel to have more of you inside of me. If I take off your clothes, will you be too cold? Something tells me I'm about to get very hot. Oh, cringe. And then it just jumps right in to the, I want to that wicked little mouth and this pretty and make you come with my name on your lips until I've completely ruined you. Okay, but what I really want is to taste you, princess. I want to make you come apart with my deep inside of you. And she says, that sounds very good. So I will say though that again, this book does veer a little bit different than the typical sex scenes because he says that he wants her to ride his face, which honestly does not happen enough in books, in my opinion. Good for them. She does, and it says, my hips are moving back and forth like I was taming a stallion. It says the word entrance, of course it does, and then it says that his, I'll just have to bleep it. His was spearing into me. That was incredible. He said, I haven't felt like that in so long. You're just saying like that because it's been like 100 years. I assure you that isn't the case, princess. I haven't felt like that ever. And then she offers to give him a rhymes with toe snob. And he says, if you spoil me like this, I might reconsider bringing you home after all. I guess that's just a chance I'll have to take. So they stay like this for a while because there's still snow and they're still getting steamy. And, you know, he's cooking up food. Honestly, this is the dream, especially the snow part for me. Like, sure, it's a hot man who knows what he's doing and he cooks a lot of food. But the real important part is that there is no responsibilities and it's out in the middle of nowhere with snow, which is where I want to be. I live in Florida. I'm dying inside. I cranked down my AC just so I could wear this sweater. I just want to be cold. It's November, for fuck's sake. It's 85 degrees outside. I'm dying. He says that he's going to take her home, that he's going to shovel the pass himself, which I don't know how wide the pass is, but all right. Wicked, I could just stay. No, you can't stay here any longer. I should have never brought you out here. This was all a mistake. But what about this? She says. We were just passing the time, Rowan. It was nice, but it's time for you to go. You said you'd never had it so good. You told me it was amazing. It's time to go. You belong with your family, not out here with the monsters.
You just don't belong in my world, Bella.
So he takes her home, and of course, the not Gaston, Ellis, flies out of the castle, and he's like, oh my God, Rowan, you're here. I definitely was doing my best effort to get you back. We've been searching for you for weeks, my father said. There was no trace of you after the beast came back. What do you mean searching? For what? You guys can't do anything. I haven't found a way to break the decree, Ellis said. I've had the overseers working around the clock, but it's ironclad. I'm so sorry, Rowan. I don't understand the rules. Help me understand the rules. There's no need. He let me go. And her mom immediately is like, oh, you're home and you can get married. I'm so happy. She pulls away to say goodbye to Wicked, but when I turn around, he was already gone. So then they immediately start planning her wedding to Ellis. And the night before that she's supposed to be wed to this guy, she's looking out the window and she sees movement in the trees. With my nose nearly pressed to the glass, I watched it. I knew that shape. The breadth of those shoulders and the cadence of those steps. She runs out there and she's like, Wicked, where are you? I know you're out here. I saw you. Go back inside, Rowan. That's where you belong. What are you doing out here? Go back inside, princess. Tell me why you threw me out. Why you wanted to be rid of me so quickly after everything we shared. That meant something to me. Did it not mean anything to you? No, it meant nothing. Go back inside, princess. He says go back inside, princess, like 5 times. It's a little much. Surely he hadn't been thinking everything he'd said and done. I won't go back inside until you talk to me. Then I'm leaving, he said. You're not getting away from me that easily. I'm not going anywhere until you talk to me. Go home. Why do you insist on bothering me? Because I love you, you asshole. First of all, no, wrong answer. This is the part where you need to say him, what do you mean why I insist on bothering you? You walk back to my castle, not the other way around. But instead she's like, I love you. I'm going to help you capture that ogre and I'll carve out its heart myself. She doesn't. And if that beast dies before I can do that, then I'll stay in this forest with you forever. And of course, at the last possible moment, who arrives? It's the fucking ogre. Dark green skin glistening in the moonlight. Its back was hunched and its hands were the size of church bells. Wicked's like, run back to the castle, Rowan. Run back now. I'm gonna draw it away from you and you attack it from behind. It'll follow me. I swear to the gods, I'm gonna lock you back in my cage if you do this. Ooh, promise? So she runs, the ogre catches her, and then it's like squeezing her, and then of course he stabs it and with his sword and it dies. And so then about the heart, she's like, do you want me to do it? She's like, I didn't want to slice it out, but I just promised I would. But don't worry, he does it. And he's like, I need to eat it. And she says, wow, your brother really hated you. For some reason, he wants to go back to his house to do this. So they go all the way back to his house, but you know, they need to get there quickly. So he says, get on my back and hold on tight.
You better hold on tight, spider monkey.
Okay, Edward. They raced into the night. They go back to his house. He drops this ogre heart into a stock pot. He makes a stew out of it, eats the entire thing. And she's like, okay, so did it work? And he's like, I don't feel any different. But then she notices that the tattoos on his face from the curse are starting to disappear. And he says, did you mean what you said out there? You would have stayed here with me, that you... Yes, of course I meant it. Don't push me away. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve you. That's actually kind of true. You were a dick for like no reason. I took you away so I could use you as bait. You can't love me. I mean, I wouldn't, but she does, so you might as well just accept it. You did, but you were desperate. It was wrong, and you shouldn't have done it, but I forgive you. I forgave you the night you told me why. I love you. I want to stay with you. I forgave you the night you told me why. So if he had just explained this to her sooner, then there would have been no drama. Which is, I hate the lack of communication being like the way that we manufacture drama. Ugh, I can't give you anything but this broken down castle. It's like that TikTok. It's like that TikTok sound. I love your daughter. What do you have to offer her? Nothing. Only this piece of shit castle I made with my bare hands for no reason. You're the brightest light in the sky, Rowan. You deserve so much more. I don't care. I have everything I need if I have you. And then they kiss. After all these years, after all the loneliness and disappointment and the loss leaving you here, you there was the hardest thing I've ever done. When did you know you loved me? I asked. When you shoved me inside that cage. Stop it. That's not true. It's true. You were so feral and brave. I couldn't decide if I wanted to tear your clothes off and fuck you senseless or hang on to you and protect you forever. How about both? Both sounds good, princess. By the laws of Aetheris, technically, I still belong to you. You don't belong to me, Rowan. I want you to be mine, but I'm yours too. I've never been more sure of anything, she says. In that case, I can't spend another minute without my cock buried inside of you. Wow, that escalated quickly. I'm not going to read it. Just know that they boink on a table. Good for them. And then they say, I love you. And he says that, by the way, his real name is actually Wicked. I'm sorry I made fun of it. We'll call it even for the whole using you as bait thing. They head back to her parents' castle and they're like, where have you been? In the forest with him. And that's where I'm staying. I convinced them to call off the wedding and to hold the hunt again, and this time make my sister the prize. It was a role that suited her better, and I'd always suspected she'd make a better match with Ellis. If that loophole existed, if the Fae are not going to wage their wrath upon you for using said loophole, if it doesn't, why didn't we just say that sooner? And she tells her sister, who is obviously attracted to Ellis and vice versa, I think this works out for all of us. And she tells Ellis, oh, we'll see each other soon. I hope you've been practicing your hunting since you have to hunt again, for my sister. He's like, I might need a few pointers, talking about getting pointers from Wicked. So her and Wicked ride off into the sunset, and she asks, where do you want to go first now that you're finally free? Find your brother and take back what should have been yours? Maybe someday, but first, I want to experience more than this fraction of a life before I'm embroiled in a war I probably can't win as long as you're with me. Wait, you're thinking about waging war? In the last line of the book? I smiled at him. Anywhere, everywhere, always. And that's the end. It says, ready for more hot enemies to lovers forced proximity vibes? Read Feral is the Beast. Book 2 in the Cursed Captors series. Is that where the war happens? I'm so confused. Well, that was Wicked is the Reaper, which, no, he's not. He was not the Reaper. My hair uncurled so quickly, good grief. It's not the worst Beauty and the Beast retelling I've read, but it's certainly not my favorite. I really get frustrated about when books, even if this one is short, books don't answer very basic questions that I need in order to get fully immersed. What's interesting is one of my favorite things that I read this year was this short story. And this I felt had me have much less unanswered questions than this with double the pages. It wouldn't have taken much to explain why the loopholes, the rules, why the Fae are the way that they are, and then I would have had way less questions, and I probably would have enjoyed the story more. Overall, I'll give this a 2. It's okay. It's not the worst thing I read. It's not going to end up on my worst of the year list, but it certainly could have been better, all if we had just answered some basic questions. And also, I feel like some of the lines in this, I was like, what is this description? What are we doing? Just another pass of edits, I think would have helped there. But again, not the worst thing that I've read. And I do appreciate certain parts of the sex scenes just because I feel like I'm reading the same scene over and over and over. And a couple things, 2 things that we did in here did things differently. The verbiage pretty much the same. The description's pretty much the same. But the different actions that we're doing were different, which I think is great. Let's spice up our spice. Let men direct how they want handiwork and let women ride some faces. Okay. Wow. What a way to end a video. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your favorite Beauty and the Beast adult retelling down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.
And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, if I can get my microphone to work with me. And those are Alexander, Ashley H, Astra, Brittany Bobitney, Call Me Kodiak, Cami, Choco's Traumatized by That Dang Book, Chris the Horror Therapist, DJ Rocktopus, Ellie, Emerald Dodge, Aaron with 2 E's, Eric, Jess, John E, Kay, Kalei no K, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Katie, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lady Chips, Lauren K, Lemon Jelly, Lex, Lily B, Max B, Mixer Boneless, Alice, Panoramic Demon, Peggy Lou, Rain, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Shiny, SMK, Spoopy, Steph B, T Delegati, 2 Orbit, Umami Mommy, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, and Zorvictia. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And last but not least, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my potato starch Marxists, and those are AB Daniels, Anaki, Alejandra, Ali Alicia, Alistair, Althea, Amanda D, Andy, Angelica, Armadildo, Hardy the Ninth, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blythe, Bookish Brainrot, Bookish by Jenna, Bree, Kate B, Caitlin P, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate W, Catherine, Kathy, Claire Online, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic, Darius, Danielle, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorian, Dorothea, Drive By Thinker, Ebby, Emily A, Emma, Other Emma, Ezra Moon, Fiona, Forever a Boat, Francis, Gadarn, Halia Artisan, Hannah C, Harpy Kuro, JM Tennant, Jay is on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Gender Queer, Jenny G, Jessa Sue, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Catherine, Katie L, Katrina, Kaylee C, Kayala, Kendra, KMTV, Laughing Cat Dog, Lauren, Lazarus Ray, Library of Scars, Lindsay M, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Lou Siri, Lustful Octopus, Martin, Maddie, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Megan, Malara, May, Mima Who, Molly, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Nyan Binary, Paige P, Paul, Penelope, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Plague Carrier, Queen Cereal, Rachel B, Reba, Rebecca, Rebecca R, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Secoria, Sadie Selby, Saintbringer, Sakia Lume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Shamed, Shannon, Sean, Sophie, Stardust, Talia, That Nerdy Mystic, Tiana, Too Thick to Work Today, Trash Can Teddy, Triple M, Taito Phoenix, Unicorn Jenny, Wobbs, and Writer A. Thank you so much for being here and for being a friend.